Here we are at Bahama Bucks, enjoying some cold treats to talk about a book, Ursula K. Le Guin's Left Hand of Darkness, a book that takes place on a frozen planet nicknamed, what is it?
Winter.
Winter. Here with my guest, Savannah.
Callies,
yes.
Not Garrett.
Not Garrett, because I knew Savannah in middle school. And what's funny is, I don't know if you know this, but like, so we became kind of friends after I got back from long term, because I was in theater with you.
Yes.
Do you have a good memory for this kind of thing?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and you directed a student-directed play that I was in. Probably should have never been cast in because I couldn't remember my lines at all. I was so awful.
It was totally...
And in that play, I don't know if you know this, but Emily Bogenschutz was in that play. Also not Emily Bogenschutz anymore. Emily...
Cinque.
One of those. And Erica was her friend. My wife was her friend. And that's how I started hanging out with Erica. So our relationship started...
Yes.
Okay, you know this.
I also...
You're proud of this.
I do, because I am happy when people find love and it lasts. That's amazing. But I distinctly remember being in the costume room and saying something to Erica along the lines of, your Mrs., the beautiful Erica, not Hardy, but Campbell. Yes. I was like, I think you should do it. He likes you. And that's just, I feel like I had a two cents in a fabulous love story.
No, you did it first. So, Ursula K. Le Guin's Left Hand of Darkness. I gotta tell you, I like to start off with trying to give like a synopsis.
Right.
To people who have never read it before, and then we can do spoilery stuff more later.
Okay.
This is an old book, so if you're spoiled by it, get over it.
It came out during the 60s, so that was like during, Yeah.
If you don't know, or, who cares? But, but also I think this book is like, it's beautifully written, and even if you know certain plot points, it's not going to ruin it for you.
Oh, no.
But either way, we'll talk about what it is. So it's basically a future in which humanity from Earth has been adopted into this, like, it's called the Ekumen.
It's like a United Nations, but for all the human planets.
Yes. Which is big because Ursula K. Le Guin was growing up during when the United Nations was becoming a thing, during like the 40s and 50s.
Yes.
So I think that was informed by it.
Oh, heavily influenced,
And now... we see a human as the main character, right? Genli?
Genli I.
Who goes to this planet called Guin, but they nickname it Winter because it's in the middle of an ice age. Extremely cold. You can only survive like around the equator of the planet, right?
We learn the folklore of the planet, though, that like the deep ice regions are where, the shame dead people go. Like, there's a character who vows to be with another one for life, and that's unacceptable in their society. So because instead of moving, that character kills himself. Well, geez Louise, but no worry, his lover finds him up in the north, and he's like this. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of like Game of Thrones.
And that is folklore, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing about the book that I think is really unique and really cool, is that it's written in different perspectives. And she says it in the beginning, if you read the preface.
Yes.
She says, this story, to really understand the story, you have to understand it from different perspectives. And that's a really cool way to set you up for the book. And I gotta be honest, the first time I read it, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. I read it the second time and I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't know what I was getting into the first time I read it.
I agree. The first time I read it, or the first time I was told to read it, it was a summer reading for a class. I was required to read it. And
that's different.
How do I put this? I couldn't rationalize in my mind all the differences between Earth and this new Guin planet.
Yeah,
and so I was
probably younger.
I was like, I don't know, 18, 19.
So Genli is a guest on this planet. He's trying to get Guin, the planet, to join the Ekumen, to join this trade federation.
Yes.
And you don't force it. And that's another thing in Star Trek that's pretty interesting that they both share, is that you don't mess with the native world. You don't give them technology. He doesn't teach them the telepathic communication. He doesn't want to bother them. It's just one person, him, and he's sent there to basically communicate with them hey, this thing exists outside of your planet. We want you to be a part of it, but it's all up to you. Like, we're not going to force you. It's all about consent.
Consent and agency. And then allowing the people to not, and it's even the line in early chapters, he says, I'm only here as one person so as not to cause fear.
So basically, Jin Lee is trying to convince this one place, Karhide, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to convince Karhide to be the first, because you don't have to get the whole planet to agree. You get one country to agree, and then the other ones will fall like dominoes is the idea.
Yes.
And so he's trying to convince Karhide to join, but it's not working out great. His main contact there, Estroven, who he doesn't really trust, it gets kicked out of the country, becomes an exile, and then Genli is sort of allowed to go free. And so he decides to go to Ogre in the other place to convince them to join the Ekumen, but and he gets a warmer welcome there, but then
they turn on him quick.
They turn on him quick.
Send him to a darn internment camp.
Yeah. So he's sent to like an internment camp and is basically going to die there
because he gets ill. Until
Estroven, who has been exiled to Ogren, decides to save him and help him out. And then it's the story becomes Estroven and Genli surviving on this desolate ice desert planet, basically, trying to get to civilization, but learning about each other. Genli's trying to get these people to join the Ekumen, and he's really, he is patient, but not that patient. Like, he's getting frustrated. He's getting very frustrated because he doesn't understand them. He doesn't understand how they don't associate with gender, that kind of thing. And he doesn't come to understand them until he finally slows down. He's forced to because he's on that journey with Estroven. I hadn't read a lot of female authors, and I felt bad about that. Like, I was like, I need to seek them out because it's a different perspective. It's different. It's going to be different. And so Ursula K. Le Guin, Octavia Spencer, there's a bunch of them that I found, and I was just reading it like, okay, I don't know anything about Left Hand of Darkness. I know that it's by a female author, and I want to read one. So I read it, not knowing what I was getting into, and sort of enjoying it, but the first time I read it, it felt a little slow to me. I didn't know that it was going to be, and the weird thing is I actually, a lot of people say that this is like really science fiction fantasy. I actually think it's pretty close to just straight science fiction.
I think so
because
too.
Even the fantasy elements, we'll get into later about like, they can do like a little bit of telepathic communication. She explains it in a scientific way. Like, she says it develops.
Exactly. It's so pragmatic in the explanation that it rationalizes it so much it doesn't seem fantasy. Like, I don't have to buy into it. I don't have to like release my understanding of the world.
Well, and it's speculative because she's not saying it exists now. She's saying it exists now, but that only certain people can tap into it. And she's saying that in the future, once we start to free our minds more and stuff like that, that's when we can tap into it. So she's predicting the future, which is science fiction. You know?
Yes.
So the first time I read it, I didn't know it was going to be this epic, this like world journey, this kind of thing, because it does read to me like it's a world building book, which is typically you see that more in fantasy. Science fiction, they're more focused on the issue or whatever it is, and she's got the issue in there for sure, which is a lot of gender, a lot of politics, and it's not preachy though, because she's a beautiful world builder.
And it's been laid out so matter of fact. Even like whenever
it's a journal.
Exactly. And when Jin Lee, when he's like conceptualizing things and breaking it down, he's trying his best to be so objective and so like not judgmental in a bad way.
Yeah, at first.
And then I just feel like in so doing, you buy into you buy into it.
So the first time I read it though, I didn't love it, and I don't know why. But I think it was a little too slow for me, and I wasn't sure I was getting to, so I was kind of like, where's this going?
Yes.
And then also, the way it's structured is that there are different voices.
Yes.
Different people, like, some of it's folklore, some of it's Genli, some of it is Estroven, the other character. And at first I was, I would get confused because I was listening to the audiobook.
Yes.
First time I did it. But now I appreciate that a lot more because I feel like, I don't think a lot of authors were doing that back then. And not only were they not doing it, but also the multiple perspective lends itself to the book because the whole book is about perspective, in my opinion. How genders view different things, how genders handle different things, and how this world, okay, we haven't even talked about it, it's a world of people that are androgynous, and like some amphibians on Earth, like their gender comes out when they are in their mating time, kimmer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What is so amazing about this world that Le Guin has created is that these characters, these people, they don't need gender, sex to tap into their identity. It is all who I am, what I do. Yeah. It is not how you were born.
Yeah.
And what's cool, and it's so mimetic with like.
And it's not in your face.
No,
you realize
it's so discreet.
You realize throughout the book that they have their own identity that's not based on gender.
It's not, and okay, so
because Jin Lee keeps trying to peg them down.
Yes.
He keeps trying to say
put him in a box. Put him in a box.
He's a man, and by the way, 1969. A black male character, which is also but it's subtle.
It's progressive.
She's not like making him like a culturally black character. He's just a black dude. Like it doesn't really like force it down your throat. But people who are reading this in the 60s who maybe weren't progressive, they're just kind of forced to be like, oh, this is just a guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
She's not applying like a culture to him. She's just making him like a regular person.
It isn't until he's talking to like King Agriven and he's like, well, are your people as dark as you? And he's like, there are people on your planet as dark as me too.
Yeah.
It's just every other planet with humans, we have fixed gender.
Color is not even a thought.
Yeah,
and for a book that was written in 1969, that's pretty impressive.
Well, and if you think about like what's going on at the time, you have second wave feminism, you have the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War has just ended, right?
I think it's still going on.
It's still going on. Yeah. And all of those dynamics, the people that are going to pick up
but people are protesting it.
Oh yeah, if people are going to be like picking up something by a female author,
they're going to be more progressive.
I would think they would be more progressive.
But it won, all the prestigious science fiction awards. So, I mean, I think some people that were like, they respected that industry, science fiction, they were like, I'll pick it up just because of that.
Yeah.
So it got a wider audience. A lot of the people that were reviewing it online, male and female, are missing the boat big time on this book.
Right? Every time I read a review, and I've said this to my girlfriends so many times, I'm like, and it's with a lot of books that are so close to my heart. It's like I read the review, it's like, so a long trail in a not Antarctica long one. I'm like, that is not what this is about. Yeah. It's learning to conceptualize people as people, not as arbitrary parts they were born with.
Gender, race, whatever.
Exactly, because you can't, a man or woman, a person cannot change what they were born as, and that's so irrelevant to who they are.
Well, and a lot of the male reviewers especially, who are like big into Star Trek and all those things, I watch it and they're almost like dismissive of this book, and it was really upsetting me. Like I was getting mad listening to these reviewers. Like this I watched this one where these two guys are talking about it, and I'm being like sexual stereotyping here, but they really are two guys who are looking at it from the wrong perspective, and like they're doing stuff like this, like they're like the Ekumen. And they're like, which is basically the Star Trek Federation. And I'm like, no, she was writing at the same time as Star Trek was coming out.
Yes.
She didn't copy them. Her and Gene Roddenberry grew up during the age of the UN, and so it was on their minds. But it's almost like, I'm going to give the credit to a guy who I respect, and not to a woman who I don't know anything about because I haven't checked her stuff out, you know?
And a lot of contemporary authors have been inspired by Le Guin's alternating perspective. And the first time I read it, I was able to pick up on the POV switches because it kind of reminded me a little bit of Faulkner and how he'll randomly change. Whoa, now it's from the special needs person's perspective. Now it's from this person's. So I was with the change of voice. I was like, okay, I kind of get what's going on. But it wasn't really until my third read that I truly did appreciate the structure and think that it was perfect for the story, because without it there would be no authenticity to it. Because I feel like, how can one appreciate a new world if they don't understand it and get to, I guess, metaphorically see it from those that are from there and various people who have visited, right? I mean, like,
and their folklore, and their history, which there are chapters where it's just folklore.
And the thing is like, if we were going to go to a new country, right, or if we were going to go travel in Peru, you'd spend a little bit of time researching. Not only just other Americans that have been there, but
Manners
European people's
or
manners, figure out why are the customs like this, and read up a little bit on Peruvian people that have written stuff, so I feel like in that way it's
perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah. And about the pacing, at first, like I said, I thought it was a little slow. I was listening to it and I would find myself like trailing off. But then I think this time, and I think it really helped knowing that I was going to talk about it, I was trying to listen more intently. And I was missing stuff because I wasn't paying attention. That's the issue. Is that the book is slow for two reasons. One, I think that she's deliberately going slow as a way of looking at, like, first of all, how genders tackle things. And, Jinli is very much, I think he knows that he's trying to get a mission done, but he's also kind of anxious about it. And the other guy, Estroven, who's from the planet, is sort of like, that's not how things work. Like, he's like, why didn't you tell me this sooner? He's like, if I would have told you, that would have caused other, just slow down.
Slow your roll.
Slow down, and if I become close to you, then that would have put you at political risk because I was a political outsider. And so that's why I stopped, advising for you. And so, and there's a lot of confusion, like Jinli and I is like confused about that, like, why didn't you do this? Why weren't you more straightforward? But being straightforward is not always the best way to do things.
Exactly. And I think that becomes really poignant when we meet the foretellers.
Yes.
Right? They're the predictor people. Yeah. And it's like, yes, we can tell you what the future holds if you ask the right question.
Right.
And I feel like Jinli and Estroven's dynamic, particularly in the beginning, they are, Jinli's not acting.
He doesn't trust
Estroven,
yeah.
And
who doesn't really have a gender. I mean, we'll just say his name every time we're talking about him, I guess. Yeah.
And Jinli isn't asking the right questions. And it even is said when the king says, "Let me offer you some advice." Jinli's like, "No one's offered me advice before."
First time, yeah.
It's kind of like, well, there's the different social dynamics.
Yeah.
A king is going to be like, "Let me tell you," versus
right.
an advisor is going to.
The other place, that's the other cool thing. So like I said, world building, it's also slow because she's world building. And she, a lot of science fiction authors or even fantasy authors will focus on one place, at least for one book, like this country. She defines 2 countries and mentions 3 others on this world. So she's really doing a lot of world building here. And it's an ice planet. So again, slowness of pace is built into the idea of the planet.
Exactly. And the fact that they're in this ice age makes Gethrin as like the everything they do is governed by the environment. They have to.
Yeah.
You are at the whims of the elements.
Exactly.
So what you eat, how you travel, when you mate, how you breathe, everything is governed by this environment. And she does a great job.
Like Frank Herbert's Dune. I don't know if you've ever read that,
No.
but Frank Herbert's Dune. Frank Herbert gets a lot of credit, and he should, for like building. He has like a sand world. And it's like a very desert world, right? He gets a lot of credit for building a world that has like, he really thinks about the ecology and all that stuff in it. She does the same thing with this ice world. She really talks about how things would have evolved here and really convinces me as a reader that there would be a non-gendered, humanoid species developing on this planet.
It does make perfect sense.
Yeah.
It would, because natural selection.
If you're wasting energy all the time being in a state of heat, then you won't survive on this ice planet. So there's designated times of Kimmers, what they call it, where you will be in heat or be ready to mate.
It's like your mating season moment. And what I think is really cool, and it's so nuanced that she takes the idea of Kimmering and its association with the lunar cycle, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, is that not mimetic with like the female anatomy and cycles?
Yeah.
And it's just like this lovely little...
It's subtle.
It's a subtle cadence, like right above you.
That's the thing is, if we talk about this book as being like a feminist book, it will turn people off.
Oh, yeah.
But the issue is, it's really, you do get feminist messages big time.
Oh, yes.
But they are built into a story that is a story. If you would not, it's not, it doesn't feel like a message is being pounded down your throat. However, you start to get certain things as you're reading the story, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's those beautiful light bulb moments where you're like,
that's what she's saying about gender. That's what she's saying about this.
Oh, yeah. The gender politics that she includes is so nuanced that it isn't down your throat. And I mean, shoot, I've studied feminist rhetoric for the last 10 years. It is so, like I said, it's a cadence.
Yeah.
It's just this, it's floating around your head. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be heavy-handed.
No.
And I think that's a lesson that we can apply to authors, life, just about anything, is you don't need to put the pedal to the metal to make it.
And another critique that I kept hearing on these reviews that was pissing me off was people were saying it's outdated because gender is different these days. And I was like, dude, what world do you live in? because there's a lot of people who could benefit from reading this book and learning about identity and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And today it's just as relevant today as it was back then.
And I mean, frankly, if we look at this from like the development of philosophy, right? You couldn't have feminism without everything that came before it, okay? But especially second wave feminism. Without second wave feminism, you wouldn't have cultural criticism, Afrofeminism, Chicana feminism, and everything that felt and then even further LGBTQ cultural criticism. That all was birthed from this movement. So is this book outdated? Absolutely not. If this is outdated, then Tolkien's outdated. So the reason why, and this is hypothesized by one of the envoys that previously came to the planet, she surmises that the people of Gethryn don't have war because they don't see in male and female. And the disregard, and now I'm going to use my language, the disregard of that binary, then the couplings of weak, strong, passive, active, all those power dynamics that exist when you have binary couple, like, binary pairs, so to speak, that evokes
Jinli like feels a need to like appear strong to Estraven, but Estraven doesn't have that need. Like he doesn't care about appearing stronger, or like women will, I feel like typically here will want to appear like reliable, like you can count on me. I'll take care of all the responsibility. And that's not that. You don't have those identities. So like you're not expecting anybody to be strong. You're not expecting anybody to be completely reliable.
It's like this person is strong because these things they've done demonstrate that. This person is passive.
It's all about your past.
Exactly. It's what you've done, not how you were born.
And it's because Jinli doesn't understand Estraven's past that he doesn't really understand him until he learns about his past. Well, we could talk about this book all day.
I could.
We exhausted a camera. we like the camera's like enough. Like,
the camera's like night night.
They get it. They get it. But unfortunately, I think we've covered as much as we can. This time. At the end of all the videos, I always ask, did we do our best? We did our best.
Yes.
The camera didn't agree with us.
No.
And the location didn't agree with us. We're at Bahama Bucks, but it took us a while to get here.
Yes.
It was a long and winding road, and we learned about each other on that road.
Yes.
Very
much like Estraven and Jinli.
I'm a genius.
Nailed it.
Savannah, thank you so much
for talking
to me. It's been great.
Yes.
Because I also didn't, you're in middle school, it's like, you don't want to take any risks. And I was like, there's no way this girl likes me because who am I? And she's like this, pretty, cheerleader, all this stuff. And I was like, there's no way she likes me, right? So I remember, do you know this part of the story?
Probably not.
Okay, so I asked out a different girl. I was like, it's time to have a girlfriend. I'm in middle school, time to have a girlfriend. So I was like, Erica or this girl, and I was talking to my friends at the time, and they were agreeing with me like, no, Erica, there's no way Erica likes you. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to take the safe bet instead of the better one,
Right, yeah.
So I asked out this other girl, and Erica didn't talk to me for a week.
Really?
And that's how I knew that she liked me. And it wasn't until I think it was like a rap party for the play that was at your house.
Probably.
She still wasn't talking to me, but then I told somebody, because you have to tell somebody.
You have to tell someone that will tell the person for you
that you like them. So I told somebody, I said, tell her that I'm not going out with this other girl anymore. And they told her, and then she was like all over me. And so not only was it through your play that we met, but also at your house that we sort of became a relationship. Yeah.
Oh, that makes my heart so happy.
Yeah.